What is your equipment package? Well, generally speaking, an equipment package is the gear that you want a student to have per their program. This idea that they should get everything all at once sounds like a good idea. However, by holding off on allowing them to make some purchases, it makes the offer more enticing. So my recommendation is for each type of membership that you sell, or if you're not selling membership types, each level of rank, students need to invest in mandatory gear and equipment. Now, a lot of us come from backgrounds where we're not familiar with how expensive it is to be involved in most sports and activities. But the average American family knows that to be true, that they put their kid into a sport or an activity, that's the easy part. Supporting that sport or activity. I'll give you an example. I was in Reno yesterday, and we stopped by to watch a neighbor's kid play soccer. And it was unbelievable what this family had invested, not just into kids' equipment, but in theirs. They had a big, giant red wagon. They had this enormous canopy that they put up to protect them from the Nevada sun. They had a big Coleman, one of those old school Coleman thermoses for their beverages. They had what's that high end cooler now? Yeti. They had a big Yeti cooler that you could put a small child into. I mean, just looking at the gear they had, I bet they had blown about a couple $1,000s. Oh, Fred, you're exaggerating. No, I'm not. A medium-sized Yeti cooler is $500. That little wagon, that had to be another 300-400 bucks. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to drive home is this: don't be concerned that equipment is mandatory. As a matter of fact, making the equipment mandatory for the training is one of the key components to retention. You can't call yourself a karate guy if you don't have the karate stuff. So, in terms of packages, here's what I would strongly recommend. Based on the level of training that you recognize students need to have certain items, that becomes the package. What I would strongly recommend, though, regardless of how you sell your memberships, whether it's time-based or whether it's outcome or month to month, the moment they enroll, they have to have some stuff. Otherwise, they won't feel like a karate guy. So your basic package, I think, needs to be in the neighborhood of $300. Now, if they can't afford it, they can't afford it, but you can always finance it. Typically we in Sacramento and here in Jacksonville, we mark our stuff up 250, 300%. So by getting 1/3 down, we've covered our cost, and we'll extend the convenience for people to pay it off if need be. But you're going to be pleasantly surprised at the number of people that realize, oh yeah, well, he's in karate now. I guess he needs the stuff. So I think you should have three levels of packages for the gear. Your entry level basic, intermediate level up to black belt, and black belt and beyond. And I would recommend each one of these packages includes an additional higher grade uniform. As far as pricing, heck, 3, 4, $500. 3 for the basic, 4 for the intermediate level, 500 for the more advanced level. And what makes great sense is that if the student understands that the gear that you're asking them to invest in, they've seen it actually being used. Ms. Prisky, would you chime in on this? Because you sell your students a lot of stuff, and you don't have them cart all that stuff in every week. So how do you encourage your students to utilize the gear and equipment that you sell them?
Well, we have each week we rotate through different things like board breaking and weapons. The weapons we rotate quarterly, 3 times a year. So they know what to bring and when to bring it. It's always the last week of the month. We'll do sparring and board breaking on Wednesday and Thursday. So they know if they come Monday, Wednesday, bring it on Wednesday. If they come Tuesday, Thursday, bring it on Thursday.
Yeah.
It makes
I
it
think
simple.
whatever gear and merchandise equipment you want them to have, it needs to be logoed.
Hmm.
Now, you can save a lot of money by logoing the gear yourself by using, I dare say, stickers and labels. I think we've talked about it a couple of times. Mass Prisky, would you chime in again? You
Yeah,
know,
we use well, during COVID, everything was a mess, and a lot of guys were having issues with getting supplies of everything. And so, just like our dots on the floor, we went to stickermule.com. We got waterproof, UVA proof stickers, and I think we ended up getting two or maybe three different sizes. You know, a larger size for the chest guard, which is the same thing we put on the floor. We give them to people to put on their cars. We had a smaller size for the back of the gloves and the boots, and then we had, I think, an even smaller one that had to fit on the front of the headgear. But for quite a while, we just bought the stickers for cheap, stuck them on there ourselves, because you're not allowed to wear gear that you don't purchase here at the academy. It must meet our safety and insurance requirements, and therefore, there's one brand of gear that you get, and it's the one that we sell.
Yeah.
And however, fast forward to today, we don't have to do that because for like $1.75, they'll do it for you. So it just depends on if you'd rather spend 40 cents and do it yourself or $1.75 and have them do it for you. Either way is okay, but make it exclusive to you so that they're not going out and buying it on Amazon or at Play It Again Sports or something like that. You know, make sure that, and you tell them that in the tour when they first enroll, everything you'll ever need to purchase, you'll get right here at the academy. And then you follow that up with letting them know when it's time to buy the gear. You know, as you can see, everything has our logo on it so that we are certain it meets our safety and insurance standards.
Ken expanded his question. It reads, should I get them to buy the stuff they use in the training instead of me having them for them to use? Yeah, yeah. Don't give anything away. The
I
only
will, I
heck,
will never put on another man's sweaty sparring gear. That is gross and disgusting.
yeah.
And it's a good way to get staph infection.
Well,
Don't do it.
you can also upgrade to where the equipment they may use back at the house for training. Buying focus mitts and that sort of thing. But no, they
Uh-huh.
have to have their own stuff. And
Yeah.
I know that for a lot of us, the idea of them having to invest in hundreds of dollars in equipment seems a little off-putting. But I think it's a retention tactic. The
Yes.
more stuff they have, the more deeply invested, more deeply committed they are to the membership.
That's
The
right.
truth is, I think I've said this to this group. Everyone on this call, you bought all the stuff. I mean, you bought stuff that you probably never even took out of the wrapper, but you felt like you needed the stuff. So, no, do not lend anything else, anything out. Another question typically follow up and say, "Hey, what do you do about the stuff that's left?" You leave it in lost and found for 10 days, and then you get rid of it.